Having a traumatic childhood means you cannot talk even objectively about your basic foundational experiences without it being venting, even if you're not actually venting. You just straight up have a huge chunk of your life you can't talk about, full stop, without it being trauma dumping. And it not being socially acceptable to talk about your own childhood is super alienating. Sometimes people want to know why, and any answer you can give them is going to be off-putting. It's to the point I get irritated when something I said is framed as venting when I'm literally just talking about my life experiences, doing my best to keep emotion out of it. When I was in high school, I overheard two older students talking about a friend of theirs. One of them said something like, "It doesn't bother me that friend was in residential mental health treatment. I just wish they wouldn't talk about it all the time." The other replied, "Well, that was all of last year for them." So when they say, "When I was in treatment," it's like when you say, "last year." I try to remember that anytime someone says something that sounds shocking to me. Sometimes one person's scary special crisis is another person's last year.
And the only thing I want was being alone.
Let's hear what you got.
All right. Well, these
Wrap it up.
So, the only walk-in clinic in our area opens at 9 a.m. If you want a spot for your animal in the morning, you probably need to show up around like 6:30, 7 o'clock to stand in line so that way you can get checked in for your animal. This lady thought that she could make a check-in list with a shoebox that she probably had in her car, and hopes that they would honor that. We all knew it wasn't going to be honored. So we're standing in line, and this lady shows up, and she's like, "Oh, I created the box," and this lady over here, she's like third in line, and I'm just looking at her like, okay, I'm second in line, but I was out here, my name's not on the box, I'm standing in line like we're supposed to get weight to checked in. Finally, they let us all in. They tried to give him the box. The lady's like, "Yeah, no, we don't do stuff like that. You get in line and we check you in when you get to the front desk. That is what it is." So, of course, this lady turns around and she's like, "Oh, well, you know, it should be like, oh, let the next person, and they were here before me, so they should go first, you know. When we're in a grocery store, I always let the person in front of me go to the new register because, you know, I have morals and I'm a nice person and blah, blah, blah." So, this lady's talking to me for some reason. She's looking straight at me, and so I look at her, I'm like, well, they don't operate that way, so I guess you're probably just gonna have to stand in line if you want to visit this veterinarian office. And she's like, well, I always let the person in front of me good nights. And what? I'm like 62 and you're like, what, half my age, and I've been around longer than you. So I looked at her, I was like, age has nothing to do with this. God, you are standing in front of me in line, so clearly you got your way with your stupid little box. So turn around, get your animal checked in, and quit talking about it, because right now you're just rambling on pointless information. Nobody cares. Turn around. Now, the kicker of this whole thing is the veterinarians don't get here till 9 a.m. So we're still sitting in our vehicles waiting more for them to call us to go inside with our animals.
You didn't think you'd make it to 17?
No.
But did you think that you would do something to yourself?
Yeah.
It doesn't get better and it doesn't get easier. I can't keep lying to myself, saying I'm gonna change. I'm poison. I come from poison. I have poison inside me, and I destroy everything I can.
I was in middle school
school, I literally had like one wish, and it was to break my arm so that I could get attention. And before any of you guys say how weird that is, I just know like I cannot be alone in this. Like there are other people out there who also recognize the wonders that breaking a bone would do for you socially. But anyway, one day in 6th grade PE class, I saw my opening. All right, we were doing this thing where we were passing the basketballs back and forth to each other, like checking it against the ground. And my classmate Sabrina, she passed it to me, and it hit the tip of my finger, like right here. All right, and I decided, that's it, I'm injured. Did I say anything in the moment? No, because I was actually totally fine. But I did go home to my mom later, and I told her, I think I like messed up my finger. And my mom was like, wait, what happened? And I like tell her this whole story. Like it's very exaggerated, very dramatic. And she's like, oh, like maybe you like jammed your finger. Like your finger looks fine though. And I was like, I don't know, like it really hurts. And she was like, well, maybe it's broken. You think? That sucks. Wow, I didn't want to hear that at all. And like meanwhile, I'm like trying to hide my smile. And she was like, don't worry, we'll just like tape it up for the night. So she got a popsicle stick and she taped it to my finger with like a bunch of white medical tape. And I was like, ooh, it's kind of looking like a little baby cast. And I was like, mom, like the tape is like kind of like coming up at the bottom. Like I think I need more tape. And she was like, okay, if you think so. And so she put tape around the top part of my hand, like this part. All right, she put tape around this. And I was like, ooh, that feels so much better. Meanwhile, nothing was wrong. Nothing was wrong. Except for up here was wrong. And then when I woke up the next morning for school, she was like, is your finger any better? And I was like, it's really not. And she was like, oh, like maybe it is broken. And I was like, maybe. And I was like, I think I need a popsicle stick like to wear to school today. So I went to school that day with a popsicle stick taped to my middle finger. So I was constantly flipping people off. And I was like, this is awesome because it's going to give me exactly the attention I was looking for. And it honestly did. All right, I went to school and everyone was like, oh my God, you broke your finger? And I was like, maybe. Like, it's very sad, you guys. It's very painful, but I might have broken my finger. And everyone was desperate to sign my tape. Like, it was my dream come true. Like, even the cool guys in my class were signing my tape. And I was like, whoa, this is what it feels like to be popular. And then after school that day, my mom picked me up to take me to my little private clarinet lesson that I had because I used to play the clarinet. Anyway, and on the way there, I was like, I really can't play, Mom, with my finger taped up like this. Like, how am I supposed to play my clarinet? I was honestly hoping to get out of the lesson. But then she was like, well, if you can't take the tape off, then maybe your finger's broken and we have to go get an x-ray. And I was like, and she kind of just called my bluff at that point. And I took off the tape. And that was the last day that I had a broken finger.
Story time of when I realized that the way I grew up was not normal. I want to preface this by saying that I no longer blame my mother for the way I grew up. A lot of therapy has gone into me the past 3 years. And I've realized that the way I grew up, my mother was just using the tools that she had to raise me like she was raised. And unfortunately, she had a very abusive past, just like I did. I grew up in a very chaotic household. There was a lot of yelling, a lot of cursing, a lot of hitting, a lot of spitting, dishes thrown, and mental abuse. So much mental and emotional abuse. There were times in high school that I would gather my things and my dog, and go stay with my best friend and her family. I didn't think I was gonna cry. So that I could avoid the line of fire at my house. Not to mention the boys I dated growing up had a lot of childhood trauma as well. One of my boyfriends and me kind of grew up together, traumatizing each other because that's what we knew. When me and my long-term boyfriend broke up, I met my now husband. And when I finally met his family, I was like, the jig is up. Where's the cameras? Where's Ashton? I don't believe any of this shit for a second. His parents weren't screaming at each other in front of company. They didn't seem to scream at each other ever. His dad seemed like he'd never heard a fly. I was like, false. And my husband could not understand the way I fought for the longest time. And by the way, I used to throw shit like DVD players and break them. Until the first holiday he spent at my house with my family. When one of my family members lost their cool and screamed at the top of their lungs for everyone to get out of the kitchen, my husband, my now husband, boyfriend then, was stunned. He was too stunned to speak. And I'll never forget that ride home. He was quiet for a while, and finally he said, I get it now. I'm like, you get what? He's like, I get why you scream and why you throw shit when you argue with me. I'm like, boy, I've been trying to tell you this whole damn time. Because if you didn't know, we're typically products of our environment. From that point on, I definitely had to work a lot on my anger management, but my husband gave me a little bit of grace. And I started to see more and more whenever I would visit his family that there is such thing as a calm environment for your family. His siblings didn't live in fight or flight like mine did. His father loved his kids. I even remember the first time I saw him loving on his daughters, I was like, what the fuck is this? Go to part 2.